Hello, everybody. Welcome to a brand new episode of Founder Stories podcast. In this podcast, we interview up and coming founders from United States. But today, our guest is not kind of an up and coming founder. He is an experienced one. So, Christian, welcome to our podcast. And please tell us a bit about yourself and your startup.
Sure. So I'm orange on my screen. I hope it doesn't look that way to everybody else. I'm like, jaundice. My name is Christian Hammer. I'm the founder and CEO of Vala AI. I've been doing this for quite a while, going back into the early 90s, which I'm always told don't tell people that because technology is a young person's game, right? But the first iteration of tech startups that really hit the world was the dot-com era. The beginning of that was in 1994. I was right there. Had a series of them, eventually exited a couple of them, did fairly well. Started an incubator in 98 or 99, and then went through the dot-com implosion. Went and jumped to big companies for a bit, did a couple more startups after that. Went to another set of big companies, and then founded this one. I notably, through all that, AppNexus, which was acquired by AT&T, that was pretty big. Weirdly, Banfield, the pet hospitals, which was acquired by Mars, the company that makes M&Ms and also every dog food brand on the earth. They acquired us. It's been a few of them along the way, but I was at Nike, built out their direct-to-consumer business with my co-founder, actually, Wilf Russell, who was the CTO at Nike when I was there. And we were trying to go from being a company that wholesaled, Nike was a wholesaler. They didn't do direct to consumer. They didn't sell directly to you. And we were trying to inject that. And when I joined, they were doing about 100 million in revenue in direct to consumer. By the time I had left, we had raised that to 2 billion. And by the time Wilf left that, they were up to 4 billion. So we had a pretty big impact there. But Vala is solving a problem that's come up throughout our entire careers over and over again. And I like to say that we're the janitorial services of software. Like everybody, when you're building something new, you make a mess because you're going fast and you're just creating, right? But at some point, you have to clean up the mess. And that's what we're here to do. Our AI platform looks at your entire IT tech stack, evaluates it, looks for opportunities to make it better, and cleans it up. It also, of course, would then go through and do things that you didn't do along the way that you needed to do, like documentation and writing tests and all the stuff nobody wants to do. So we're very early. The company's only 6 months old, so it's very early in that journey.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, so a lot of the questions for Vala will be asked from Osama here because he's the tech guy and he's the CEO and he's very well versed with technology. But I'll be asking you a lot more general questions and a few more questions about your artwork too. I looked up your LinkedIn and when I went there and looked some of your artwork. So later I'll be asking some of the questions about that too.
Oh, happy to talk about that.
Yeah, and pretty interesting artwork, I must say.
Thanks.
Okay, so one of the question is, are you guys bootstrapped till now, or have you raised any funds?
We raised a very small friends and family round. I go out to your closest friends and family. Thankfully, I have some very successful ones, so we were able to do okay. But then it was otherwise bootstrapped. I'm a big proponent of bootstrapping a company. I think that it gives you a lot more flexibility to do what's right for you and your business. When you raise institutional money like VCs, your path gets much narrower, and you're always raising. That's part of the cycle. And I would prefer not to always be raising. I would like to build an amazing product and have that self-fund us going forward, maintain more of our equity position in it. And that had some good examples to fall back on. I was also at Wayfair. I didn't mention that. And they were bootstrapped right up until they went public. They raised a late round and did very, very well for themselves. So I believe it's the right way to go.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of founders would, prefer the independence of decisions and, not be, because fundraising takes a lot of energy. Yeah, I've talked to a few people in this space and you'd agree that, right?
Oh, yeah. Ironically, I am actually about to start a raise. That's the sad part.
That was going to be my next question. Will you be looking to raise in future or not?
Yeah, we are about to kick off our. I actually don't even know if it's a pre-seed or seed round, but we're about to do it because the reality is speed kills, especially in these emergent technologies like AI. You have to go fast, and to go fast, you need money. So you've got to raise.
Absolutely. Agree with everything you just said. Yeah. And Osama, please start with your technical questions and all other things you are curious about to know about Vala.
Okay, so I went through your website and I was like amazed with the product you were just making. And just a quick question is that you are like assessing the vulnerabilities and all that in the repositories for the software. So how are you basically targeting to upgrade your software as the new vulnerabilities and new potential software uh, like risk occurs, and how your software is going to solve these new software vulnerabilities in future? Yeah.
Yeah. So the vulnerability piece is just the first almost proof of concept for us
Yeah.
because it's very addressable. It's very urgent. People care about it a lot. The second thing that comes up is the breaking changes that occur with software. Like you leverage, I don't know, pick a library, jQuery, and
Mhm.
you're on 2 and 3 just came out. 3 is a breaking change. Your code has to adjust, right? So at the very beginning of the company, I created a product called Brother. I was
Mhm.
going to take Brother to market. This was actually a year ago. Brother and Devon AI are identical feature by feature. The
Okay.
difference was Brother was just command line because it was built for somebody like me. Right? I don't care about your WYSIWYG. I just want to, tell it what I want to do and have it go wrong. Do it. At our core, we've always been able to generate solutions. And the reality of enterprise software, and this is where things like Devon fail, and it's why I didn't go forward with Brother, is enterprise software is not really about writing code. It's about integrations.
Mhm.
And the complexity of integrations requires you to have a much larger context window than any of the LLMs underneath you can provide.
Mhm.
So I'm explaining all this to explain kind of how it works, right? Before there was the multi-agent model concept, I had written Brother to be a conductor, and it's a heuristic piece that sits on top and acts a lot like a product manager would in a traditional development environment. So it is just saying the user wants to do X, Y, or Z, and then it's spinning up experts in the form of like discrete LLM instances to say, hey, you're a let's say you're a software LLM, a software agent specifically targeting like Mistral 7B or something like that, right?
Mhm.
So you can ask it, hey, based on what they want, do you have any questions? Would you have any questions, right? Is kind of what you're setting up. And you do that across all the different roles. And because I come from a test-driven development background, we actually start with QA and say, QA, what would you have to know to be able to make sure that this worked so that you can write appropriate tests? And then software engineer, I'm using human terms for things that aren't humans, right? But the idea is the same. And so that it builds up that until it's finally, there's no more questions coming in. Everybody goes, yep, I got what I need. I got what I need. And then it packages it up and starts portioning off the work and saying, go do X, Y, and Z. So that conductor job sits there. Now, when you go down to the integrations that we're doing and you're first interrogating their system and understanding the map, that's actually not that terribly difficult to do, right? You're reading through the package.json file if it's an npm like repo. If it's in Java, there's about a dozen ways to do it, etc. And you're just describing that graph, and you go 7 layers deep, 8 layers deep, right? Because you dependency of dependency to dependency until you've got a cobweb, right? Once you have that view of everything and how it all connects back together, you start interrogating it by asking exactly the same kind of situation. Hey, you rely on this version says it's got these, these notes according to its release, right? What would you have to do? Because we're asking the little agents sitting in each of those spots. And by the time it comes back with a full baked solution, it's a project plan effectively. And then our little instances of things like Brother go out there and start executing on them and writing the little bits of code that need to change, committing them to Git or GitHub or whatever repo management you're using, with all the notes that go along with it. So it acts like a whole bunch of little software engineers going through and making those changes.
Okay, just a quick question. Why do you think this brother thing would not be able to like make up in the market? What is the like main kind of a pinpoint concern you have with the
It,
brother?
it, it really came down to that
Mhm.
enterprise software isn't about writing code. It's
Okay.
about integrations. And to do that, you have to understand what each of those different things you're integrating with are doing, why they're doing it, why the business is using it. So I think of Nike's a great example of the worst case scenario on this front, by the way. So
Mhm.
they have 5 different ERPs. They have 2 different kinds of PeopleSoft, or 2 different versions of PeopleSoft, and 3 different versions of SAP running.
Mhm.
Just to understand that, like, this one's North America, it's got these specific use cases. They don't have their financial or whatever, right? They don't have all the parts in it. And to build up that contextual map is far beyond the capabilities of like a single brother instance or a single Devin like instance to be able to do anything with. If it needs to generate code against that, how does it understand that? It doesn't have the memory capacity for it. So what we had to do was abstract all that away in such a way that we can feed it back into our multi-agent solution and contain the work that's being done on it and verify, hey, does that do it? Does that do it? But just saying, like, if you look at like Devin, if you look at Brother also, very easy things like build me a website that does X or build me a snake game that's web enabled with JavaScript, right? That's a very easy thing to write. In a half hour, well, it's not a half hour, in half a day, a decent developer could probably write the equivalent. But to
Yeah.
do it in an enterprise integration level thing, you're talking how many years? I mean, how much effort has been put into it? That amount of context is just beyond the capacity of most systems.
Okay. Yeah, I do get your point. Totally agreed with that. One more question, which I think the greatest concern right now is in especially in the European market and all the areas in the especially in the US as well. So the privacy, the data privacy and protection, and
Yep.
your software would be the more like would be mostly used by the software engineers from a lot of companies. Yeah, so there would be a very much private code available in there. How your software manages to give the confidentiality to the customer about the data protection and privacy? Yeah.
Yeah. So when it comes to PII, if it's embedded in your GitHub repos anyway, that's on you, right? As the customer, we're not going to try to solve the mistakes you made in your architecture around PII. Not initially. We will eventually get to that. When it comes to what we do, if it's a concern for them about when we're making a call to the AI itself, which by the way is the last thing we do, it's not the first thing we do. That's an important point. We are AI last. Heuristics, traditional software development, everywhere I can use technology that works today, I do it. Static code analysis, I do it, right? When I fall over to the LLM because I'm trying to generate a response, right?
Mhm.
We can actually firewall that and reroute that towards an internal model. So it doesn't ever escape their network. So if the customer says, we don't want anything going out to, Google or whoever else, we want it all to never to leave our network, we just wrap it and route the request back in. Actually, for us, it's not even that. We just point at a local model because we are multi-model anyway. So we just say, okay, we'll host X versions of X, Y, and Z. We'll put it within your network and we'll reroute all of that to it so it never leaks out.
Okay, so you're basically giving like two kind of a models. One where you are basically giving the LLM as well to their host system architecture. Is it correct? Something like that?
Yeah, like a self-hosted LLM. Yeah.
Okay. 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 So that's a good thing. Yeah. One more question, which like everyone is like hyped about Devin and the product you are just talking about, and the brother you were just uh, previously working with. They all are like they are all like almost the same, having a competition in within itself. And what do you think? A potential software engineers would basically face in future the concern of getting like jobs being raised or something like that. The new developers right now have this kind of a concern moving on the
Well,
LinkedIn. If you just see there are like tons of posts out there. Yeah.
yeah, so this is a topic that's near and dear to my heart. I've been in this field for a long time, and when I first got into it, you were like I was regularly the computer guy. Oh, you're the computer guy, right? Early in my career, and
Mhm.
that was a very powerful thing. And weirdly, like it was a very powerful thing. Like I'm the only one that can solve all your problems, right? Over time, that's actually become even more true. Except that we're no longer the computer guys. We're like software engineer or whatever your role is. The reality, though, and this is actually why tech debt became such an important topic for us internally, is that as a software engineer, your job is to translate the needs of the people and the business into something the computer can understand. Whereas to me, that's an imprecise translation layer. You think of it like the game of telephone, where you tell you tell somebody something, and they tell the next person, the next person, the next person, and when the message gets back around to you, it's no longer what you said, right? That's kind of what we do as software engineers. We don't really understand the business. So we ask a product manager to tell us what the business wants, and then we write code to do that. Why do we need the software engineer then? And I know this is a scary thing to say, but the reality is with large language models and the ChatGPT type tools of the world, we have the opportunity to talk to a computer the way that we talk. We can converse with it, and it can understand our wants because we can explain that to it, right? That's a better thing. That's what we want in the world, right? So what do I suggest to software engineers? Well, get deeper. Like software engineers will always exist,
Mhm.
but they won't be doing the easy stuff anymore,
Mhm.
right? Get deep into data science, get deep into, managing and moving big amounts of data around. The hard technical challenges, go there. If you're looking for an easy software engineering job where you just get to build like little UIs on UIs, it's not the easiest thing. It's also a mess. But like, if you think that you're just going to do a little bit of coding and make a great career out of it, you're wrong. That's gone. But the role I would suggest you look at, though, and it's one I used to disparage, is the product manager. Because
Okay.
that product manager is the future software engineer. They are to software engineering. They
Mhm.
are the future software engineers.
Okay. Uh, I would say right now the fields are kind of like integrating within itself as well. So I would say if you're just looking for like pure, if like someone is like web developer, then his job might get lost. But if the person is like having multiple talents and like connecting those dots together to create something new to solve a problem, then it's like pretty valuable for the kind of like moving forward. New products are being built, new problems are there, new challenges need to be arrived for these problems. So there is some kind of a job over there. But yeah, you're totally correct about the thing. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and automate everything you can of your own job. Like, I mean, if you want to stay relevant right now, it's to find tools that allow you to be 10 times more productive and to produce 10
Exactly.
times more, right? Which, in my view, was always our goal. You
Hmm.
know, when I sit down and build something, I look for every tool I can find that makes me faster, safer, better at it. And if I can produce something in a day that you could produce in a week,
Hmm.
right, I'm much more valuable to the business or to myself if I start the business, right? So always always be asking that question. And it sucks because I like my cousin is about to graduate from college with a computer science degree.
Okay.
And when he started it, I was like, world's your oyster. Like, pick your path. You're gonna do great. Now I'm like, maybe you should get an art history minor. Like, like straight. Um, but at the same time, one of the reasons I actually wrote Brother was this problem. When
Okay.
ChatGPT 3 came out, I've been in ML for a long time. And when ChatGPT 3 came out, I was shocked. I mean, seriously, it was one of those moments where I went, oh no, what I've spent the last several decades doing, now anybody can do. What do I do?
Yeah, I also have like seen many of the people like doing their research papers and all that, and they were like crying because having their like years of research being like or like removed, I would say, after
Yeah,
like the GPT. Yeah.
yeah, you're just done. And so
Yeah.
I said, okay, if that's true, I want to prove it to myself first.
Mm-hmm.
So I built Brother as a way to try to prove it to myself. And what I learned, and this is why I say, like with Devin too, it was like, cool tool, cool toy, like
Mm-hmm.
not quite what it needs to be to really make that true. So in the interim, what do you need? And that's why we ended up building Vala, honestly, is I said, okay, well, frankly, the biggest problem isn't the ability to write code. It's this complex interconnected web of integrations that everybody has to do. How the heck do we solve that problem? And along the way, can we add value? And
Mm-hmm.
so the first thing we did is dependency management, because that sucks, right?
Yeah.
Everybody hates doing it. It takes a lot of time. Let's just get that off the table. We don't do that anymore. I've got a tool that does that. What else? What are the other janitorial services I want to go away? Let's do those.
Okay. Yeah. Got your idea. So I also have a little question like what do you think about like having two startups or two startup ideas being executed once, and should the entrepreneurs have like one thing focused first, or should they go with multiple ideas at once? Yeah.
Well, it depends on what stage you're talking about. So at the very, very beginning, before you've really raised any money, built anything, you've got to find if there's anything there. And so I tend to run like A/B testing, and I'll use LinkedIn as a good place to kind of test it out. I'll write an article, make a couple posts, start to see if anybody cares about what I'm talking about. And if, I'll run that, and then I'll do the next one, and I'll do the next one. And it might be versions of the same one. It might be, the first idea, just change it a little bit, change it a little bit, change it a little bit, or it could be fundamentally different. It's kind of ironic that you're asking this, because I've actually got a second one that's already built that I'm about to release, because I could do it by myself. But once you're at the point where you've got strong conviction that that there's something of value, focus, nothing else matters. Like that's got to be your sole purpose in life, is to make that a reality until the point at which you've exhausted the opportunity. If there's no more there, maybe, and this is a mistake a lot of entrepreneurs, when they get that initial bit of success, screw up, is they get to the first 100,000 in ARR and they're like, oh, wow, we're going to be huge. And it never goes much above that.
Okay.
You've got to know that that's its terminal length. That's it. You're there. Now, is it costing you $1 million to make 100,000? You probably shouldn't do that, right? So you've got to know when you reach the end of the road, you've finished the opportunity, and then pivot to something else.
Yeah. A somewhat similar question would be like if a person having a good job, and then he also have an idea and wanted to execute that idea, should he be doing it part-time, or should he be focusing on that particular idea and should quit job, and at what stage should he be able to like quit the job? Yeah. Should he quit
Big
immediately,
questions.
or should he go? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so as somebody who walked away from a very high-paying job to start a company, I can think you know where my answer lies on that. However, I could. Not everybody's in the situation where they can, right?
Okay.
You give your company the best chances for success the longer you can afford for it to exist without paying you. The first step in any company, besides the idea phase, right, is getting to the point where it self-sustains. That doesn't mean it sustains you. It means it exists whether or not you are getting paid, right? That's your first milestone. Then your second major milestone is it can sustain you. Do you have the resources to get there? If not, keep your job, right? And then try to get it to that first milestone while you still got a job. And then maybe get to that second milestone while you still got a job. But the problem with that is it's going to take a lot longer to get to either one of those. And, in today's world where the pace of change is so incredibly fast, you're going to miss out on opportunities, right? So you've got to balance that, but not everybody's got the ability to walk away from their job and go do it. And the reality is 90% of more than that, probably 99% of companies fail, right?
Yeah, totally agree with that. Yeah. So this is kind of like the major kind of like concerns for young entrepreneurs to like, are we going to quit the job, or are we going to like continue with the job and do the startup or something like that? They are like little bit scared like to quit the job because if you are like in the end of any month, you are like just getting paycheck, and then you are just happy, and then in the end it's like if I would be doing the business, I would be earning more. Yeah, there's something like that back and forth coming in. Yeah.
I'll give you the same advice I give everybody. If you can imagine doing anything else, do that, frankly, because this is a hard road. This is not easy. The riches, the pot of gold that everybody imagines at the end, it's not going to get there by walking. It's not going to get there by skipping. You're going to be battling your way the whole way, right? There is very rarely a company that their first idea, hell, I would argue that the first team you pull together to execute on it, you're not going to succeed with that team. You might have a couple people in there that work out for you, but the whole team won't. It's a very difficult road. However, if you can't imagine doing anything else, if you look at your life and say that's the only way I'm ever going to find contentment, then you better stop everything else. You better focus on that and cut your life expenditures. I was about to say cut your life to, like how long you're going to exist, because the stress is going to wear you out fast. That's not what I'm saying. Cut your cost of living as low as you can get it, so that you can keep it moving forward without having to worry about it sustaining you for as long as possible. Because the longer you give yourself, the better chance you have at finding radical product market fit. And that's what you're looking for. And you don't mistake that early success for the big win, right? But most founders fail multiple times before they ever have a win. So if you go down that path, don't expect an easy win. But don't, the counter to that though is don't give up early, right? Understand what a win looks like.
There are a lot of contradictory statements.
Yeah.
A lot of it depends so much on everybody's situation, unique situation. Like you said, you have to cut your expenses, but it really matters at what point in life you are. Like if you have a family, I mean, there's so much you can cut down on expenses. And
I generally recommend, if you have a family, don't start a company.
Yeah.
I know that sucks to say, but it's largely true. You're going to be working nights and weekends. You're going to be putting 100-hour plus weeks in, right? Unless you've got a family that's willing to let you do that for 7 years.
Absolutely. Yeah. And because there's gonna be a lot of dark days, and you're gonna see your family, worrying about little things wouldn't have worried if you were on a job or something like it. It becomes a very stressful situation. Yeah, very uncomfortable situation.
Absolutely.
I mean, I could listen to you talking about these kind of things all day. I mean, it's so interesting when you talk about these things. Okay, so I think a lot of our questions about startups and Vala have been answered, Osama. Am I right?
Yeah.
So now I mentioned this earlier. I have to talk about your art, and I looked it up, and it's so interesting. And I noticed a pattern about there was a lot of sea life of sea, like crabs, koi fishes, octopuses, and there's a pattern of liquor. I mean, every after 2 or 3 artworks, I see a bottle of wine, a bottle of rum. I mean, please tell me what's that about. Tell me that side of yours, the artist.
So I've been an artist my whole life. My degree is actually weird. My degree is a mix of fine arts. Well, it's a mix of like 4 programs. So it was fine arts, architecture, computer science, and electrical engineering. And it was because we didn't know where technology was going to lead us. And so we were looking at like, how are humans going to interact with our future technology world? Are we all going to have robots in our house? What is that going to look like? How are we going to do that? Are we going to have Nobody had any idea the mobile phone was coming at that point, but like, are we going to have computers everywhere in our lives? Is that going to be a part of it? And so we were exploring that and figuring out how it all worked. But on the painting side, I really got back into it in the middle of COVID. I had taken a long time off from painting because I just didn't have time, frankly. But I started making time. And we moved to an island. So when I moved here, I'm surrounded by sea life. That's the world I live in now, right? But it was also the middle of COVID, and the island I live on has a lot of distilleries and breweries and wineries and all that kind of stuff because it's a place where people go on vacation. And so as I was going around, I'm like, well, the sense of the place, what I understand of where I am is a combination of liquor and sea life. And so and honestly, crows and ravens.
Yeah.
Which is so it's in the Pacific Northwest of the United States. And if you're familiar with like the Vancouver, Canada, Native American art, a lot of it is centered around ravens and crows for a reason. They're everywhere. And so as I sat down to do that big one with all the bottles and all that in it, those are all from distilleries and breweries and such on the island. And the little goldfish in the glass is me. And because it's also a small town, you're surrounded constantly by everybody knows everybody's business. And I was new to the area, so I was an outsider. I was a goldfish in this place with like otherwise sea life, right? So that's what that one's about. But I like painting sea life because my wife and I met, and then she got me into diving. And I saw it a long time ago, and I've seen how things have changed. And it's a beautiful, fascinating world that's so foreign to us that I can make an octopus that looks correct. But because you don't know what it exactly looks like, I also have a lot of room to like just screw around with it. Like, oh, it's got this going on, and everybody's like, oh wow, that looks like an octopus. I'm like, well, kinda. It's kind of a caricature of one. It's close. But I love painting. It's the other side of the brain. You spend a lot of time coding, which is a very analytical, linear thought process to some degree. I do think that there's a lot of poetic license that we take when we're writing code. And then you've got the creative side on the other side that needs an outlet. And the combination of the two, for whatever reason, has made me really good at the job of being able to see a complex problem and not dwell on it, but to background process it when I'm off painting or going for a walk or doing something else. And that's allowed me to have a lot of inspiration in these weird moments from like painting an octopus and all of a sudden like, oh my God, like, and then run back and start coding.
Yeah. And that makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's everything from our side. If you have any questions for ourselves about to ask anything from us, we'd love to answer it. And thank you for so much, for making time from your busy schedule. We understand you have a company to run, you have a podcast to run, you do a lot of things. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, the podcast is fun. And at some point, do you have your own startup? Is that why you're asking a bunch of the questions? You do. So tell me about your startup. I want to hear about this too.
So our startup is like TriTechX. It's service-based startup right now. And we are like providing services in the area of like software engineering and in the area of like AI consultancy, and also in the area of cloud. Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a lot of areas.
Especially we are focused mostly right now towards like the AI and the software engineering. Yeah.
Okay. So one of the trends that we saw happening was there was what was called the shift left, which is to try and get everything back into the software engineer's hands, right? Then we saw that fail a lot of places. So then now there's a big shift right. And the shift right is like, we'll stand up an SRE function, site reliability engineering function. We'll stand up a DevOps function. We stood up these roles because we were asking too much of the software engineers that didn't really understand it. And the consultancies that have come into that space are fascinating because they really focus on trying to be that outsourced SRE / solutions integrator / right. And the cloud piece is really the crux of it, where you have a bunch of software engineers at an enterprise legacy system that don't understand the vagaries and specific notions of each of the different vendors. And so you bring an expert in, they execute. How are you finding that market? I have a thesis about what's about to happen there. So how are you finding that market right now because of tightening of budgets and everybody all of a sudden being excited by AI?
Mhm. So it's quite a challenge, I would say. After like having AI over there, I would say uh, the requirement for having a bigger team is not there. I would say there is you need to find small teams with enough talent to use that AI tools and all the technologies which are like right now booming to solve that problem. Yeah. So I'm like considering of having small teams focused around having a good talent being hired, and then that talent basically is like executing the job. Yeah. So
Okay.
not having like many kind of a software engineers being like hired and like put into the consultancy and all that, having a small group, and that is like specifically targeting that particular niche of the problems. Yeah.
So, for example, you might have one that's a company that wants to migrate to AWS and they want to implement some AI automation into their CI/CD
Mhm.
as they built this up. And so you've
Mhm.
got a team that has that specific set of joint skill
Yeah.
sets that works together.
Mhm.
One of the models, sorry, I'm asking, and then I'm going to give you a bit of unsolicited advice.
Please do, please do.
Please, please.
There's two competing things that are happening at the moment. One is I do think that the AI dev tools are like a meteorite sitting over and about to impact, and the people that are going to be impacted are solutions integrators, which is what you kind of fall into the category of. And so you've got to be very aware of that. And I think you're well positioned from a geography to be cost effective and be able to compete, which is good.
Mhm. Yep.
But the other thing that's happening that I'm not sure what to think about it, but I'll give you my suggestion on how I was thinking about it is specialists are expensive, extremely expensive, and the AI specialty in particular is super rare.
Yep.
So finding a way to not have to hire a bunch of expensive specialists and still be able to have your teams is really interesting. A
Mhm.
model that we did a long time ago, which worked really, really well, was we had effectively we'll call them freelancers. They were employed by us, but they went from project to project to project to project, and they were just a part of that team for a brief period of time.
Mhm.
And so they would come in and say, hey, I can automate that for you. They'd automate it and then they'd bounce and they'd be off to the next thing.
Mhm.
And because they got all those different experiences across all our different teams and all the different customers, they became really, really good at identifying what like tools they could build for themselves and for the teams.
Mhm.
Uh, and it worked very, very well for us when we were trying to do a similar thing.
Mhm. So
Yeah.
I would say you mentioned about having a good location. Yeah. So having, because I would say there is a lot of hidden talent in the area which I'm like located uh, in Pakistan, in India, and in Bangladesh. There is a lot of talent, and they are not getting that much of an opportunity, I would say, to have that talent being exposed. Yeah. So if we just look in this area, then there will be always be a need to like execute the things. Yeah. So why not to use these guys to execute that things? Yeah. So this is like the one of the potential, I think so, in the market right now is. Yeah. But having them trained in a way that they executes the problem really well is kind of like a problem. Yeah. But we can do it. Yeah, we can do it. There are a lot of, like, I would say, good universities in these areas. They teach a lot, and having a company that basically guides them, and having them being leveled up their skills would be able to like cope up this problem. Yeah, I think so.
That's so I've got a couple questions about there's always been a cultural disconnect between the United States in particular and a large portion of the India technology development group. And that tended to come down to we're a very direct society, we'll just tell you what we think, and there's no such thing as hierarchy.
Mhm.
Like that, a boss is just a job. It's not a status thing, really, right? In fact, a lot of times, especially in software, the pointy-headed boss is kind of a derogatory. It's not somebody you defer to. It's somebody you tell to, go away. And so when we interacted with a lot early on at some of the bigger companies I've been at, when we brought in outsourced dev from India in particular,
Mhm.
we would get the yes, we could do that. Yes, we could do that, but they couldn't. And they
Mhm.
didn't know how to say, hold on, we don't understand what you're asking. They didn't feel comfortable being able to ask. And
Mhm.
it put a real big strain on the organization, because things would get down to the last minute and they're like, oh, well, we didn't have all the requirements we needed to do it, so we failed to do it. It's like, then ask. Like, the cultural divide is difficult to get over.
Yeah. And what I have learned through my experience is like, uh, I always say to every team member in my team that you need to take the responsibility. Yeah. If you are doing particular action, you need to basically be responsible for that. It's not like I don't have that requirement and I don't have that particular thing. You need to ask, you need to solve that problem. Yeah. Because in the end, you are just solving the problem. Yeah. Writing code is not like a big deal. Yeah,
Yeah.
it could be done with the chat GPT, it could be done with any kind of a tool over there. Yeah, use them, use anything, ask people, connect with people, and then try to solve it. Yeah, it's not like an individual thing. The thing which I personally like don't like about freelancing is like the person is like hired and he is not being care about anything about the product. He just do the job and just get himself like off from the project. Yeah, so you have to have a commitment. It's kind of like a family who solves that particular problem to get that particular product to the top. Yeah, if you have like okay, I'll just do this particular function of code and then I'll just leave, then it's not gonna be a big success. Yeah, according to me.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. We are actually going to start looking to outsource portions of dev on us, because the velocity that we need for the features on top of our platform is greater than I want to hire permanently for. So we're going to start looking that direction. So I'll reach out to you guys when we're serious on that front and see if we can at least try you out at first and see if it works. And if it does, there'll be a lot more work after that.
Yes, totally. Yeah, anytime you could just ping me and Ramil. I think so. You have the number for Hassan as well. Yeah, you
Yep.
can.
There's no number. There's only messaging on LinkedIn chat.
Yeah, but that's how I usually would reach out first anyway, and we'll go from there. That's the easiest way to do it.
Mhm.
Email is the best way. I think email is the best way.
Cool.
Mhm.
I've got that too. Oh, I've got your Gmail account. I don't know if I've got your
Uh,
actual email.
You probably reach out. That's the fastest to reach me. My Gmail account.
Okay, I can do that.
Thank you, Christian, for taking that. Again, I'm saying this again only because I know you're a very busy person running your own podcast, your own startup. So thank you for taking time out of your schedule. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, happy to do it. You guys have a great one rest of your night, and maybe we'll talk soon.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye.
Bye bye.